Hello, everybody. I'm Cindy Praden, the SVP of Sales for EnsoData, and I want to thank you for joining us today for an educational webinar, Marketing 101 for 2021. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce our two esteemed guests that we have presenting today, both on my team. First, Rachel Bohr is the Director of Marketing at EnsoData. She served as the marketing director at Revolution EHR during a period of over 7 years, where we obtained over 100% growth year over year. She has a background in sales, providing her with a unique perspective and approaches marketing focused on achieving growth and exceeding revenue goals. And we also have joining us Stephen Miller, who leads the marketing educational charge at EnsoData as the marketing manager. He's a journalism and strategic communications double major, and he's able to convey important and complex topics to the industry. He has a history of working as a strategist for marketing, social media, and PR campaigns, and has served on the board of the American Marketing Association in Madison for the past 2 years. So with that, I'm going to hand it over and let them take you through the information today.
Thanks, Cindy, and thanks again to everyone for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to learn some tips for marketing your sleep center, and we hope you discover actionable takeaways in the next 30 minutes that you can apply to your clinic. As Stephen and I brainstormed topics to cover in our monthly educational webinar series, we recognize that many of the small and medium-sized sleep centers we work with don't have someone on their team that is solely dedicated to marketing. Or perhaps you're part of a health system that has a marketing team and you want to help them put things together or give them ideas to market your sleep center. So in our ongoing effort to deliver helpful content to support sleep centers like yours, we decided to put together this webinar to address some of the more basic principles of marketing, as well as provide some ideas that you can implement in your clinic fairly easily that will help you reach more patients and providers and make an impact on your 2021 growth. But before we get started, we'd like you to participate in a short poll so we can get a sense for how each of you are managing the marketing of your sleep center. All right, so it looks like 42% have a dedicated marketing manager, 32%, the person who does marketing also does many other things. 16%, everyone in the office chips in to help out with marketing, and 11%, we don't do any marketing. All right, so for this webinar, the main questions that we will be answering are, how does marketing align with the mission of your sleep center? How do you identify your target audience? What are some resources or content you can use to promote your services and your clinic? What marketing channels should you consider for reaching your target audience? And then I'll wrap up the webinar with some examples of what our customers are doing. So you'll definitely want to stick around to see those at the end of the webinar. All right, so first of all, what is your mission statement? Do you even have one? If you don't, it's important to take some time and create one. And when crafting your mission statement, there are 4 main areas to keep in mind. Your mission statement should explain who you are, what you do, who you serve, why you do it. For example, Joe's Sleep Center is a sleep medicine organization that's helping diagnose and treat patients struggling with sleep disorders to expand the availability of sleep testing and improve sleep health in our community. So your mission statement should support the vision of your clinic and communicate the purpose and direction of your organization. All of your marketing efforts should be supported by your mission statement. It's sort of the litmus test for all of the marketing initiatives you might consider for your clinic. And if an idea doesn't support the 4 facets of your mission statement, you should probably reconsider whether it's worth your time and your resources. Let's move on to your audience and your message. So who are you marketing to? What is your goal and what's your message? Many sleep centers may have 2 audiences, physicians and patients. It's important to ask yourself, what is the goal of marketing to each of these groups? What are you trying to achieve? And what is your main message to each audience? For your physician audience, the goal might be to get referrals for new patients. And the message might be, let's improve patient health together through sleep. For your patient audience, the goal might be to bring awareness to your sleep center, provide education about sleep health, and ultimately help them be as compliant as possible so that they're living their best life. The message might be, your sleep health is important. Let's get you in the door for a sleep test. Once you know your audience and the goals and messages for each, it's time to identify the resources you want to provide your audiences to reach those goals and the channels you will use to reach them. And now I'm going to kick it over to Stephen so he can take you through those two topics.
Thanks, Rachel. And now that we've talked a little bit about reaching your specific audiences, let's discuss what you're planning on creating to engage with them. I'll talk through the big picture concepts, and then I'll leave Rachel to dive back into some specific examples for each channel on the back end. So let's start out with the easiest one, blogs and articles. Typically, your written blog content is going to be your easiest way to target a specific issue or topic that might interest your target audience. For example, you might have a sleep health tips blog post, which highlights the ways that people in your community can improve their sleep hygiene. This post might highlight fitness as one important factor in sleep health, allowing you to hyper-localize your blog post with information about your community's best fitness options. In order to reach your other audiences, you might create a blog post talking about improving CPAP adherence within your patient population. This piece would be a better way to entice your prospective PCPs. So to figure out what types of blog posts and blog topics you want to write about, I recommend visiting the site answerthepublic.com. It's a free tool, and it shows you all sorts of types of interesting questions that people are Googling around each topic. I'll go into more depth on that tool in the downloadable guide that Cindy referred to earlier, but as a 1, 2, 3 here, it's a great place to start your blogging strategy, making sure that you are able to find good topics that your audience actually cares about. Outside of blogs, webinars, podcasts, and other speaking events are great opportunities to establish your team as thought leaders in your community. You can do simple webinars with PowerPoint and free Google or Meeting software, and then host those websites on your, or host those assets on your website down the road. Those gated and on-demand webinars are especially helpful for building your email list for future nurture campaigns. Infographics, social memes, and cute posts are another easy way to engage with your audience, both on social media and in emails. If you're serious about creating cool graphics and you don't have a design degree, the website Canva offers free design software and basic templates for you to get started on fun social media quotes and business marketing collateral alike. The software is especially great at highlighting patient testimonials, as there are hundreds of templates to start from. So the best practice for generating those patient testimonials organically is to reach out to your happy customers and see if they're willing to go on record to tout your services. When you get a good quote, that's the thing you want to share on social media. And at the end of the day, no matter what types of content you're creating, it's really not about the best content that wins, but the best promoted content that wins. So when you have this excellent asset, where do you go from there? So it's really important to always know your audience. And one thing to keep in mind is where they live digitally and how they consume their media and information. So that brings me to which networks and channels you should be thinking of and taking advantage of in 2021. The first one is your website. It's your all-encompassing resource. It serves all of your prospective patients. It should be easy to navigate, should have form fills that are easy to complete, and then it also is where you house all that awesome content you've created. Other places where you might find your audience and where they live digitally is on review channels. They might find you there first. Your review pages are a great way for you to differentiate yourself from your competitors if you manage them correctly, or potentially create a major roadblock if you leave them unattended. So make sure you have the right review page strategy in mind. I'll dive into that a little bit more on another slide. Your social media channels are also a great way to connect with your local community. They can help you humanize your team. It helps you celebrate your milestones. You can share all your great resources, and in general, it's a great way to promote your business. Other channels like email and text-based marketing campaigns, or even direct calling and faxing will also be important, as your patients still utilize those services. Rachel will dive into some specifics on those as well, so stay tuned there. But in general, you need to be where your patients are. They're likely in all of these locations, and holistically, your channels need to work in tandem to promote your business's missions and goals, as Rachel outlined earlier. So with that said, let's talk a little bit more about your number one resource, your website. So the first thing to do with your website is to establish the right goals. This will really help you structure your site and will identify what avenues you need to work on. So I'll generalize a bit here, but for most sleep centers, the primary goal of your site will likely be to increase your patient population. You might do this through education on the impacts of sleep disorders or encouragement of increased testing. Typically, a secondary goal might be to convince the local physicians in your community that your sleep clinic is the optimal place to have patients get tested. So your site should include resources for both, like the 2 blogs I mentioned before on better sleep habits or on CPAP adherence for PCPs. So once you have people on your site consuming that content, the next step is capturing those leads. In most cases, this is done through form fills, and the goal of each form will likely be a little different. For example, the goal on that blog post, on a blog post about snoring problems, may be used to help identify direct patient prospects. A likely submission on that blog post might be a wife who asks about her husband's excessive snoring and what that might mean for his long-term health. On the other hand, a pop-up form on your FAQ page might ask, did we answer your question, or do you want to connect with someone on our team? Each of these different forms provides the user with the opportunity to have their questions answered directly before they leave your site and to be able to get more information down the road. So when people leave your site, they'll understand who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. And that really drives back to the commentary on the mission statement, driving all of your marketing strategy. So outside of your website, where else are people finding you? Well, they're finding you on those review pages. From Google to Yelp to Facebook, there are a lot of locations for users to review your business and to find you online. In Yelp's case, once your business is registered, it is typically added to the Yelp universe, so it is very important you claim that page today if you haven't already done so. It's equally important for you to have an active and accurate Google My Business page, and I always recommend a Facebook page for those who don't have one. However, those 2 pages you have to create before any reviews can kind of get there. So maybe you're asking, Stephen, I don't know about my Yelp page and I don't have Google My Business even set up. What do I do? Don't worry, it's pretty easy. And I've outlined what you should do in that downloadable resource. So make sure you're raising your hand on that in a few slides. But with that said, the key 1, 2, 3 for your review pages is on the screen here. Number 1, register or claim your pages. Pretty easy to do. Typically, if your phone or if your system has a telephone line, you'll work with an AI system to confirm your business's ownership, and it's very simple. It can take up to 5 minutes. Once that's done, number 2, update your information. A review channel is only as valuable as what information is on it. And then number 3, you want to try to populate some positive reviews in there. I mentioned that you can do that by reaching out to your happy customers, and I'll provide a quick example here from my personal experience. So we use HubSpot. It's a marketing platform, and it offers a lot of different tools and services for us. One of those is the support team. So I had a really weird question, and I reached out to a customer service rep about a month ago, and she was super helpful. After that conversation wrapped, I was sent a "How did we do?" email. I gave the rep 10 stars, and I included a nice comment. About an hour later, I received another email, this time asking me if I'd like to review HubSpot's service on Google. This was a perfect example of finding a happy customer, asking if they'd be willing to share their story, and then following up and getting that story in a more valuable place. And guess what? I left the review. So really great marketing there by HubSpot. So once your pages are set up, the next kind of step in the process is to engage with your customers and monitor your channels. Because most sleep centers will have a fairly low volume for reviews, I recommend simply having one person manage your channels. This person should be knowledgeable, should be able to answer most questions, but also should know when to ask about topics that are over their head. Have this person have email notifications turned on, and then when you receive a new review, that individual can monitor and respond in near real time. So my tip for managing these reviews is to respond to all reviews. You can see that there, and I'm repeating it because it's very important. For positive reviews, respond with gratitude to display that your organization is attentive digitally. In a negative review situation, you have a couple of goals. One, can you turn around this individual situation? And two, can you limit long-term damage that this review might cause? I can tell you that what most people want when they leave a negative review is to be heard and empathized with. By providing commentary and actively trying to remediate the situation, you may not win that individual patient back in goal one, but you can paint a more complete picture for other prospective customers poring over the reviews on your site versus Johnny's Sleep Center up the street. So this is especially true on all review channels, but on Facebook, it is the most important because word of mouth advertising is the strongest on Facebook compared to the other channels. So let's flip over to some of the social media do's and don'ts. And to have a complete and strong social strategy, here's my 4 tips. Number 1, secure your accounts. Digital security is of the utmost importance in healthcare, and your clinic's social accounts are no exception. Make sure you have strong passwords. Limit the access to your accounts to only those who need it, and make sure that you set permissions for certain individuals. If there's an admin versus an editor versus an analyst, those are all different roles that you can have within your social accounts. Number 2, on social media, structure your workload. This is the biggest one to me because social media really is a commitment. The burnout in social media is a serious thing. And to avoid that, I recommend scheduling your evergreen content at a month at a time or even a quarter at a time. So for those who don't know, evergreen content is non-timely content. It includes things like customer-focused white papers, product description pieces, assets like case studies, basically anything that I could post either today or in 6 months and it has the same impact. Another thing that you can chunk out ahead of time in your content calendar is your holiday content. Holidays don't change. You always know that they're going to be on the same types of time frames each year. For example, World Sleep Day is on Friday, March 19th this year. So make sure you take 5 minutes, create a nice little cute post for that day, something that your customers will engage with. To kind of schedule this evergreen content, I do build out a content calendar. Content calendars are pretty useful tools, and I have included a February content calendar in that downloadable resource. Includes about a dozen posts with copy, creative links, and that type of instructionals, and they're very valuable. So once you've got that monthly content of evergreen content set up, that's a great start, but to really maximize your social presence, you need to add that timely content. So what is a timely piece? Well, it might be your team volunteering at a local festival. Take that photo, flip it into the calendar, and there you go. But Stephen, wait, I already have an evergreen post slated for today. What do I do? Well, easy fix. And it's a demonstration of the benefits and the value of this posting strategy, which is flexibility. Simply flip your evergreen post out to an empty day in your calendar, and voila, drop in that timely asset into the today's place. And it allows you to captivate your audience with both good content that lasts forever and engaging content that is more immediate. Number 3 is consistency matters. In your social media analytics section, you can see what time of day people are online. You can see what days of the week they're most likely online. And this information can really help guide your strategy. Again, if you're saying, Stephen, where do I find that information? Again, I have that outlined in that downloadable resource, but I'll give you a little bit of a 1, 2, 3 here. Basically, Facebook and other platforms, they just know all of this information about people because they have the data backing it up. The more data they have, the more accurate they can go. So once you are able to dive into these analytics pieces, you can find out what is making your fans come back to you. You can see what's driving the most clicks, what's generating the most likes, what's fizzling out and isn't worth creating. So when you look at these analytics, you'll find what I call unicorn content assets. A unicorn content asset is something that is substantially better than your normal typical content. And what you do next, make more of those, make more unicorns. So your social analytics really help you tell that story and identify those pieces. And then my last tip on social media is it's a social platform. You get more out of your channels if you're actively embracing your online community. And one of the ways to do this is by joining local Facebook groups. Find one of those local organizations that is focused on volunteer activities and show up in the comment section consistently. When we're back to more in-person activities, show up in person consistently. Be an advocate in your community for better overall health, and then continue to raise awareness of sleep health. We all know how much of the OSA population is unidentified, and each of your small sleep centers or large sleep centers can be very impactful in increasing that awareness. Sponsor your local events and festivals, like I said. Show up and educate your neighbors, because many don't even have a clue how much getting a sleep test might change their life. So if you're an active member of your community, both digitally and in person, you're going to have this word of mouth value on your side. And at the end of the day, an active posting strategy on social media with a focus on engagement, you can really make social media a business boomer.
Thank you, Stephen. That was a ton of really good information. I want to move on and talk about the outbound channels that you're going to use to reach your audience. They're pretty common, and likely you're already using these in various ways in your clinic. But whenever you're thinking about delivering content or a message to your audience, it's really important that you keep in mind who it is you're trying to reach, what that desired outcome is, and then the best way to achieve that result. So email is ideal for easily reaching a broad audience. Some of the types of content that you might send via email are an invitation to a presentation with a Zoom or other online meeting link, or maybe a link to an article or a blog post that you want patients or PCPs to read. Phone calls are really best for that one-to-one conversation, where you can follow up with doctors to make sure they received an invitation that maybe you sent via email, or remind patients about educational resources, and also proactively reaching out to patients to answer questions that they might have about an upcoming test or compliance. Text messages are great for quick messages, such as appointments and pre-screening reminders, as well as setting up and confirming those appointments with patients, and also updating hours or giving a notification of a move. My dentist office recently moved to a new location, and by just sending that new address in the text reminder for my appointment, it was very easy to just click on it, which opened up my map app on my phone so that I could easily find that new office location. Fax, while considered somewhat antiquated, can still be effective for sending collateral to your PCP partners, especially during this time of COVID where you can't just pop into an office. So that can be a great way to send an article, invitation to a presentation, or even a promotional piece about your clinic to help you get some more referrals. All right, so you have identified your audience, you've got some great ideas for content and resources, and you know the channels that you're going to use. And now it's time to put that into action. The next two slides give a few examples of content that our customers created to help reach their target audiences. First, I'd like to share a couple examples of blog posts. MedBridge Healthcare, one of our customers, wrote a very timely post this past fall called OSA and COVID, which explained how sleep apnea is associated with worse COVID outcomes. They also put together a timeless or evergreen, as Stephen had mentioned, post titled Drowsy Driving Causes Crashes, about the deadly consequences of lack of sleep. Both of those articles are extremely relevant to their patient audience and help build awareness of and educate on the importance of sleep health. Another example of content that is focused on the physician or health system audience is a blog post by Millennium Sleep Lab. The title of the post is Artificial Intelligence Enters Sleep Medicine. And the purpose of that article is to convey the benefits their customers will recognize, which is consistent scoring and fast turnaround, because Millennium uses an AI-enabled scoring software solution. So if you decide to write a blog post or article that will educate your audience and build awareness of your sleep center, you'll want to post it on your website, as Stephen had mentioned, and then promote it to your audience primarily through email. Another way you can provide education to your community and build awareness of your sleep center is to host a webinar or online meeting, be a guest on a podcast, or give a presentation at a health system. EnsoData's clinical informaticist, Andrea Ramberg, was approached by a friend who worked at the local high school to give an online presentation on the importance of sleep to student athletes. Over 120 teenagers attended Andrea's presentation, where she talked about the benefits of sleep, the adverse effects of lack of sleep in teenagers, and the correlation between sleep, training, and recovery in athletes. So even if you don't see a lot of pediatric patients, the parents and guardians of the kids that attended that presentation are likely potential future patients. And the dinner table conversations that came out of that presentation will bring awareness to the importance of sleep and hopefully encourage people to take their sleep health seriously. You could also invite local physicians to a free Zoom meeting or give a presentation at a health system where you provide information on what questions to ask and what to look for in patients that could be indicators of potential sleep disorders and poor sleep health. Email or fax is really the best way to send those invites to the physicians that you're hoping to get referrals from. And you can even make a follow-up phone call to see if they've received your invitation and then personally encourage them to attend. And another example that you can see on the right side of this slide is showcasing some patient testimonials on your website. Our customer iSleep HST has a scrolling testimonial section on the main landing page of their website that displays quotes from patients on the ease of the sleep testing process and the difference the results in treatment have made in their patients' lives. And then one final example is a one-page brochure or an informational piece on your clinic. The one-pager should include all of the information a physician or patient might need to know about you, such as your clinic name, the name and headshots of your clinicians and their credentials, your address with maybe a small map insert so they can easily find you, as well as how long you've been in business, the services you provide, and the insurance you take. You might also want to include a quote or testimonial from a happy patient. And that one pager can be emailed again or faxed to physicians that you're hoping to gain referrals from. Or you can even print off some copies and drop them off at those offices, hopefully in the future. All right, so we have shared a ton of information with you in a very short amount of time. However, we don't want you to feel overwhelmed or like you need to take all of the ideas and implement them right away. But rather, our purpose is just to give you a few ideas that maybe you'll commit to trying out to support your clinic's 2021 goals and objectives. And that is all that I have. So I'm going to turn it back over to Cindy.
Perfect. Thanks, Rachel. All right, guys,